what is it like to get a book out into the world? What are some things that maybe you want to be considering after the book is out, before the book is out, and maybe just poetry in general to position yourself for success in the field? Today we're going to be talking with a special person who
Yeah.
came back. Ajanae is back in the house. Who is Ajanae?
Ajanae Dawkins is a poet, educator, theologian, performer, and teeny top for Christ. From Detroit, Michigan, and New York. Splitting those spaces growing up, and now she is Columbus. She lives in Columbus. She has a day in Cincinnati, April 4th or something, like April 4th or something like that. Something great. She has a day in Cincinnati, so I don't know if that means that she's a Cincinnatian,
Yeah.
Cincinnatian, whatever it is. But
Cincinnati. I like that.
Cincinnati.
Maybe she knows. Maybe she knows the place where she's has a day dedicated to her.
Maybe, but most importantly for our purposes today, she is the author of the book Blood Flex.
Nice warm welcome to Ajanae. What's up? Hi.
Hey, friends.
Thank you for being with us again. Can't
Thanks
get
for
enough
inviting me back.
Yeah, a lot of developments since you last been on. Well, so you be commenting sometimes in the comment section, but since you were last on the show, we've had some developments. You want to tell us a little bit about kind of what's been going on in the world of Ajanae?
Yes. How long ago was I on the show?
Oh, that's.
I want to say it was
6 to 8 months, maybe.
6 to 8 months ago?
What is it? It's June.
5 months. It was months.
Because it was, I think it was March because it was a little bit before you had a show in March, right?
Sure.
And it was a little bit before the show.
What have you been doing, Ajanae? What have you been doing?
Okay, great. So I have a new chapbook called Blood Flex, which is officially out with the New Delta Review. I feel like that's the big one. Like, I'm working on some behind the scenes projects right now that aren't ready to launch yet, but Blood Flex is like the big one that's out in the world. And I'm working on a little theology platform situation as well.
Like an online platform or a...
To start, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like journal is like a strong word and a poor representation of what it is, but maybe the closest thing I can compare it to, or maybe the closest like early structure that I can compare it to. So yeah.
Got you. Okay.
I mean, and also kind of speaking of, just Blood Flex, I know there's other things spanning off of Blood Flex as well. You have an exhibit going up, or that's up right now, right?
Yeah, well, it's not my exhibit. I have a piece, 2 poems from Blood Flex, and then a visual project that I did in collaboration with this guy named Mathias, Matthew Pitts, depending on.
Great guy,
I've heard things about him. It was a true pleasure working with him professionally.
I disagree.
I have my own opinion.
But continue.
But beyond Blood Flex, I've been working on something. Me and Matt have been working on something called the Blood Flex Project. And the Blood Flex Project combines multiple different elements, multimedia elements.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to language it correctly. So Blood Flex is a chapbook, not a full length. And one of the things that gave me is that as a chapbook and not a full length is I felt like I had a lot of creative freedom that I don't know if I would have felt the same way in a full length, where like I had a lot of like obligations to be visiting booksellers and all this stuff. And I didn't think that Blood Flex should have been longer. I think she made sense as a chapbook, but I was interested in expanding the way the ideas in Bloodflex were experienced. So the Bloodflex project is like a multimedia kind of engagement with some of those ideas, with this investment in Black mother-daughter relationships and Black daughterhood and getting grown, and the way other Black women writers prior to me have written about that. So we started with this like film or video like series that involves like visual representations of some of the poems, as well as some interviews and other things.
I think that's really important for poets to not only view their work from the perspective of a page or even from the perspective of a collection, but also asking yourself, you know, well, where else can this go? What else can be done with this? Who else could this potentially engage with that? Because I imagine that, you know, when you're getting, you know, portions of poems in galleries, or when you're, you know, doing these sorts of video projects, you're making the poem more legible and accessible to people who maybe wouldn't have interacted with it on a different plane.
Yes, that piece, and that feels really important to me. So I had my first solo exhibition last year. I think it was July, June or July of last year, something like that. And I was really shocked by, for me, one, creatively, how much the things I was already thinking about translated, and also to this visual art medium, but then also the way it introduced my work or me as an artist to a completely new audience. Like, it's still very funny to me when I find people, or people come up to me and they know me actually for like my exhibition and installation work and not for poetry. They'll be like, "You do poems?" And that's like very funny to me because I'm like, I've been a poet since I was like 14.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and the visual art was actually the new thing. But I'm thinking about that a lot now, for a lot of different reasons. There's like a literacy crisis happening. Also, people just
Mm,
have, beyond the facts of the literacy crisis, because I don't want to just be like people don't read, people just have different kinds of engagement with the work. And I think that the poem on the page is a classic. She's a good girl. But film is like, uh, another level of introducing something, experiencing something on a wall, on a bus, in these like non-traditional places, as opposed to just in the pages of a book, is also something different. And so I started thinking about poems as artifacts, not as just individual things to be published in journals, but this poem can appear on this wall in an exhibition. And this poem can be a film and be sent to film festivals. And those films could also be sent to exhibitions, just be sent to these
mhm,
other spaces. So, yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, and one of the things I really enjoy about even that concept, because even beyond like when we're talking about like literacy crisis or like people's engagement, I think about like, you know, somebody that goes to like UAS or to an exhibit space. I think that they're able to absorb the concept behind your work in multi dimensions. And so, you know, I think that like that writing part or the poetry part, it's a dimension of your work that, you know, that I think if you are able and you have the ability and you have the opportunity, you should absolutely explore. You should absolutely delve into. But then there's this other dimension that is, I mean, just speaking about like your first exhibit, there's this other dimension that's this like, it's a poem on this really big purple wall that's decorated really nicely, and like there's an aesthetic build to it that adds another layer to just okay something being on the page. And then there is like this film part that's like kind of closed inside of this really kind of aesthetically kind of like it was like red, and there's like the salon chair in the middle, so there's like all these things that kind of add dimensions to your work, which kind of create more than just, you know, this is my work, like this is my world, and this is the actual world that I'm building. And there's another artist that I think you might have heard of, Beyonce, that is kind of picking up steam, as you know, I mean, I don't know, I believe in her. I think she'll be big one day, but
Emerging, emerging, yeah.
emerging artist. But I think about like artists like that and like other artists that, you know, when they're in these eras of creating work, they're not, the thing that they're trying to do is they're trying to bring people into an entire world. So there's something to experience as far as, like sonically, but then also visually. A lot of times, like there's tactile things as well, especially when you're going to like a concert or something of that nature. So it's really cool to see. I think an artist who kind of takes every level of their artistry like that seriously, where they're not like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'll wait until I'm in my this project to do that kind of thing, or this project to do that. And like everything kind of requires that kind of level of attention and really excitement too, because you got to be excited about every level of your work.
Yeah. And you have to be excited about every level of your work, and you have to sustain that excitement through the execution, so that you don't quit halfway through. Because I also think that's like maybe a difference between the individual poem and the larger project, whether that larger project is a book or a multimedia project like this. Is for the individual poem, I really only have to sustain some excitement about that poem for as long as it takes me to write it or to complete it. And this is my first time being like, I have to sustain excitement, enthusiasm, and interest in a project and the ideas and themes and the work I've done for a project for maybe like multiple years, which can get difficult. Can get difficult in some ways, but I appreciate that connection. So I don't know if you know, I'm like a little bit of a Beyonce fan.
What? I didn't even know you knew about her. Okay.
So yeah, I've been with her through
she's
the
watching.
underground. And that is something that I study really deeply with Beyonce. I feel like there are a handful of artists. Hi, sis. There are a handful of artists who have like deeply impacted and who I'm looking like super closely at to study in terms of lineage in different genres, and Beyonce is absolutely at the top of that list. We're actually going to the concert next month.
Who?
Me and Matt are going to the concert next month in DC.
Wow.
Literally for this reason. So I went in Chicago with both my best friends, and when we went, I was like, the film work is incredible, and the way she is integrating film, performance, and genre bending is something to be studied, and I knew Matt would love it. So we're
This
gonna
is a
go.
business expense.
Yeah, it is.
Why would you say that?
It is. It literally is a business expense. I'm taking my filmmaker there to study that show with me.
Are you the filmmaker?
Literally, my
don't
filmmaker.
we have a Diverses event that man, we got a thing for Diverses, so dang, I wish I could go.
You don't, Jeff. I
But
promise.
it sounds great. It sounds great.
Jeff said you don't have a Diverses event. So it's okay. It's gonna be a business expense, which you can do. That's also something that me and Matt implemented, which is really cool and really fun, is doing like multi-genre art study days where we have. This is gonna be one of them, where it's like, oh, there's a film somewhere. Like we went and saw this James Baldwin documentary at the Wex, or we'll go to a museum, or maybe there's a book or these poems we want to look at. That way we are like studying across genres, especially as we're working together, and that's also been really cool.
One question I have is that I'm trying to imagine the people watching this, and I think some people are going to be like, that's cool that we're incorporating these other genres. I'm not interested in those. I'm interested in poetry, and if I spend time on the film or the audio project or whatever it looks like, that's less time that I spend writing. What kind of answer would you give to that, Aja?
I think I don't encourage anybody to do anything that they don't have a genuine interest in. I know some folks who they are like, I have no interest in anything but writing. I don't want to be involved in these other things. And if that's you, and if that's how you feel, then I support you. If you feel like you,
Oh God, we got it.
Bless you.
We got it. Oh man. Oh, you're a one sneezer. Oh.
I mean,
Oh, you're a one sleeper. That's rare.
I gotta take my allergy meds.
Oh, mine are
But
so bad today.
are they okay? I woke up and I was like, I'm under attack. I wonder if it's just a high amount of pollen today.
It's really bad. Yeah.
Okay,
And the
that's helpful to
wildfires,
know.
but yeah.
Wildfires.
The smoke is back from the wildfires.
Oh, okay. That
Did you look
makes
outside
so
like
much sense.
there's fires outside?
I didn't know what was happening.
You can see it over the weekend. Over the weekend, you can see it.
I thought it was fog. That makes so much sense. Miana, I'll talk about that later off
Okay,
camera,
but-
but we just were
Yeah.
having respiratory
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But if you have no interest in film, if you have no interest in anything, then I'm like, don't do it. Don't spend your time there. I would still recommend collaborating with people or offering like opportunities for collaboration that maybe are not an additional time drain. So there are like companies companies is a strong word. There are organizations or groups that are specifically dedicated to doing things like taking a poem or taking something and making their own adaptation of it. So you can do stuff like that. What I mentioned with the exhibitions, I literally send the text over to them. Like I just send my text over to them and they print it out. I give them the font that I want and maybe the size that I want, and they print it out and in the vinyl and put it on the wall. But I personally have an interest in, there are some things that I only see in certain mediums or other kinds of visuals, or there are some things that I get and I realize the form of it is not solely the poem. Jeff, you and I have talked about this. I've been like, ooh, I have this idea, this poem's gonna be fire, and I get there and I'm like, this is an essay, girl, and you're forcing it to be something it's not. But also, I recommend, even if you have no interest in creating in other genres, I always recommend studying in other genres, because I think that can only strengthen your pen as an artist. We was just having this conversation on my podcast with two non-poets who were talking about the way poetry shapes their craft. A lot of the character work I'm doing right now is stuff I learned from playwrights and fiction writers. A lot of the research that is like wrapping into a project that I'm writing right now, I learned from nonfiction artists, like nonfiction writers and scholars. So I don't think you have to want to do that kind of work if that's not where your heart is. I do think you should study in every genre or in the multiple genres.
By the way, you mentioned you're on a podcast. What podcast are you on, Ajanae?
Oh, I am on the Versus podcast with the Poetry Foundation with Brittany
Sip your
Rogers.
tea. Sip your tea.
And I wanted to kind of bring it back. You had mentioned just like this thought of like studying other genres. I think one thing that I'll note is that even if you're like apprehensive about delving into other mediums like to create, which is like perfectly fine. One of the things I'm always thinking about is like somebody is going to, especially if you are like really diligent about your work. Like there's even if it's not an exact replica of like what you're working on, there are people that are working like on themes and things like that that might be close and things like that. And that's not to necessarily scare you off from wanting to create something yourself. It's just to say that like there is something there to mine, and there is something there that you can get things from. And so even if it's not something that you're even like, I want to put this out somewhere, I think just delving into that space, even if it's just observation, but I would say like maybe try to make something with your hands. It can churn up the inspiration on like whatever medium that you're like principally in. But if I can ask, so I mean, because you even talked about like kind of long term being inside of a project or a concept, and kind of like working inside of that project or a concept. Like how do you navigate discovery while you're like, even so the chapbook is done, right? You have all the poems written for the chapbook, whatever is in the chapbook is going to be in there now, but you're still kind of operating in the world of Bloodflex. How do you kind of navigate the space of like discovery, even as like this part of the product is complete?
For me, a lot of my current discovery is twofold. So now the writing is done. For better or for worse, I can't go back and change nothing, right? So now my discovery is in what does it mean for me to publicly engage this work with other people. So how do these poems situate themselves in my body? How do these poems are there ways that I want to experiment with performance, which is a level of discovery that I have right now? How do these poems, um, how does the conversation around these poems, how is that how is that conversation happening in different spaces? What other writers am I currently in conversation with? And what do we have in common? What are ways that I can kind of continue collecting and archiving things that are relevant for this book, even if I found them after the fact, and putting them in conversation so that I can say, hey, if you like this, you will like this, or hey, these two things are in conversation, or this is a question that I would love for you to reflect on, because this is ultimately the point that I'm getting at right now. I'm writing an essay that is uh dealing with the themes of the book, that is absolutely in conversation with my book. It's an essay on getting grown as a Black gender theory, and getting and like the kind of racial and gendered nature of the way Black girls come of age. It wasn't for the book, but it's something that will live in the world of the wider Bloodflex project and the wider public discussion that I'm having. So for me right now, discovery is about a lot of ways about that, about how do I now make this thing that exists in the context of a book meaningful in other ways for public engagement.
Could you see yourself like one day like creating like a whole like package? So it's like when people buy, you get the book, you get like the DVD, you get a printout of like the poem. Like, could you see something like that happening, like packaging wise, in the future?
And real quick, for all the kids out there, DVD is a disc, right? It's gonna look like a CD. It's gonna be about this big. We have the machine, right? And you can just slide it right in there, and it'll play.
You chose this, man. You chose this.
I'm trying to help you know what I'm saying? When this video is like millions of views,
God.
there's gonna be like some kids out there like, DVD? What's that?
You know what?
I got them together.
As much as I want to think that's not going to happen, as much as I want to be like, that'll never happen. I gave my sisters the key to start the car because I had to run in the house, and they didn't know how to start it because it wasn't a push to start. And that did something to me.
What?
Emotionally, that did something to me.
Don't know how to turn on a car.
They did, because they were like, where's the button? And I came out, and they were sitting out in the heat or the cold. I don't remember what season it was. I was like, babe, I gave you the keys to start the car so you can start the heat or the AC. That's where we're at. They were like, yeah, we couldn't find the button.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you.
Thank you. But to answer your question, yes, I've never thought of that before. I've never thought about doing that kind of package. When I think about my next project, I'm thinking a lot about
Beyonce
the performance
would.
engagement of it. And would.
But funny story. Beyonce had a product that was literally a mystery, that literally nobody knew what was going on, what was in it, and Ajanae was like,
Two.
Two. I'll take 2 mysteries, please. But you know what? That actually kind of brings to mind, kind of like there is this. Hold on, it's gonna take a second. We're gonna be on hold.
Because it's so true. And the only thing we knew,
I did buy 2.
and the only thing we knew is that the boxes were set up 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the mental gymnastics of trying to figure out what those numbers meant, I was like, well, 4 is her favorite number. So obviously, but what about 1? It was too much.
But no, so I think about things like that. So like there's like this way to kind of create a package around like kind of multiple items and things like that, which is like really cool. I even think about like maybe even the reverse. Like, do you still look for opportunities for the individual poems in your book, like as far as like places? I mean, maybe they can't like, I mean, I don't know like how the publishing work is maybe organized in that way, but like even if like if there's like an exhibit or a way to expand out the world of individual poems, are you still looking for those in this process?
Absolutely. One, I submit individual poems out for exhibition works. I have
These batteries are
a
dying.
poem that came out in a journal, in
Can
a
you keep
print
this on? I
journal
can charge this one.
after Bloodflex came out. I have two poems coming out after Bloodflex came out that are from Bloodflex. So the long story short is yes. Because there are places that accept work that's already. Oh no, I can't hear you guys. Oh no, I lost you guys. Well, if you're here, this is still diverses.
Give
It's
us
just
one sec,
diverses.
Ajay.
Oh, okay.
Grr. Sorry, peeps. We had our headphones died. It happens.
Um, I didn't know people could still
So I
see
gotta
me, so
figure
I
out
was
why they're
gonna
not.
start hosting.
Ajane, can you say something for me?
Something, something, something.
Fascinating.
What was happening?
I can't hear her. She should be coming through. She's not coming through.
Is it still connected to the headphones?
It shouldn't be. Sorry, guys. The joys are going live. Ajane.
Un momento.
Yeah.
No pasa nada.
Lynette is here. Just hanging out in the chat. Give us 1 second.
Lynetta, can you hear me?
I'm gonna try to turn off the Bluetooth. Otherwise, we might just have to
That should be. I don't think this thing charges like the fastest, but it should give us like another couple minutes.
Lynetta can hear perfectly fine. Lynetta, can you hear Ajane when Ajane talks? That's gonna be the big
La la
test.
la 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 la.
Fascinating. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Try one other thing. That is fascinating. I haven't had that happen before. Yeah, everything else from the system is gone. She can hear all of us. Why can't I want to hear Ajane though? I'm jealous of Lynetta. Lynetta can hear, but I can't.
Oh,
Let's
wow.
do.
Do you want me to log
Let's do
out
this,
and come
Ajane.
back?
Hey, do you wanna? I mean, it should be.
I mean, because I have to run in a bit soon.
Okay.
Let's do this. Ajane, people I think can still hear you. It's just us. So what I'd like to do, we're going to close with you. What I'd like you to do, Ajane, can you tell us kind of just like final thoughts about Bloodflex and things that you think people should know about having a collection in the world? Okay?
Final thoughts about Bloodflex and having a collection in the world is I feel excited to have Bloodflex as a chapbook in the world. I feel like Bloodflex is a. Oh wait, I can hear myself. Okay, now I can't hear myself. I feel excited to have a chapbook in the world, and Bloodflex is an amalgamation of some things that I have been obsessed with for a really, really long time. Always been very fixated on the relationships between Black mothers and daughters and all of the kind of things that come with getting of age in regards to like information for others on putting something into the world, something that I maybe realize is it's really hard to know how to do something until you do it, which is the oxymoron and which is the thing that always trips people up. Like I feel like I was always waiting to learn a thing to be able to do some of the work that I'm doing, and I feel really oftentimes like I'm just failing upwards, because I'm like, do I know how to make a movie? No. Do I know how to write a script, how to write a treatment? Do I know how to build an exhibition? Have I ever done any semblance of installation work before? No, I started in slam. I have some experience with hip hop theater. I have some experience. Um, I started maybe a little bit of collaging, but so much of the work that I'm doing right now is me just being like, I guess I'm gonna figure it out as I move and as I work. And I think everybody should move like that, because there's never going to be a time where you have enough theory that you feel confident to do something. It's the making and the execution that teaches you. So even if you don't feel fully prepared for a thing, to move and work as you study, and to not think about the life of your book as just in the pages of it. Okay, the end. Now I can't hear you guys.
Take two. Now we got it. Okay. Ajanae, thank you so much for being with us. Sorry about the technical issues to end, but I hope that this whole experience has really helped people rethink about, what can we do with poems? Where can poems go that is not purely just about the page? What can we do with our art to expand it, to reach new folks and things like that? Thank you for your time. We appreciate you. Cool. I'll take care of him ish. We'll see you, Ajanae. Take care. All right, bye. And to all of you guys, thanks for joining us for this interview. If you have questions for Ajanae, if you have questions about books, chapbooks, multimedia projects, and things like that, we'll be happy to not only discuss them in the future, but also pass them along to Ajanae. Any final things from you?
No, I'm not really. Just I think whenever you're creating, I think just kind of, even if you don't fully go into it, just to kind of allow yourself the space to kind of expand beyond the page, and then see what else your poems are doing, not just in yourself but also in the world.
Yeah. Let us know what you guys work on. Yeah. All right, we will catch you next week with another edition of Arts and Offers. Once again, my name is Jeff.
I'm Mathias.
Thank you guys for your time. Thanks for bearing with us for technical difficulties, and we will see you later. Have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. Take care, guys.